Podcast City Network.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome to episode 169 of the Nest Podcast. I'm the People's Champ, Brandon Brewer, joined once again by the Zach Bill. Zach, what's up, man? How was your vacation?
It was great. Had a great time. Us and a friend couple of ours from Cleveland spent about 5 days or so in Orlando, visited Universal for 2 days and basically hit everything you possibly could there. It was really fun. Never been there before myself, so super enjoyable. And it was a great time, but happy to be back on the show and ready to talk some football, baseball, and all things sports.
Well, we are certainly glad to have you back. Anything that you would recommend to the listeners out there to check out if they're in the Orlando area?
So there's two restaurants that I could recommend. Del Frisco's Steakhouse. It's pretty pricey, but boy, it was delicious. I had a 45-day dry-aged ribeye. It was delicious. And then we went to Boston Lobster Feast, which is like a seafood buffet type place, which is $60 a person. Not too terrible, but unlimited lobster, unlimited everything else, and that was just spectacular. So those two places were wonderful.
That sounds great, man. Yeah, I'm glad that you had a good trip. I'm glad that it was a fun and safe trip. You got away from Missouri and got to escape the tornadoes that blew through while you were gone. Yeah. And yeah, that was pretty wild to hear. But yeah, I'm glad that you're back and glad to have you on here. Looks like the listeners are happy that you're back too. And Brandon is saying that it's a great day to be a Rams fan. I'm sure he's alluding to the news that broke today that the Rams are acquiring Von Miller from the Denver Broncos. So Rams fans are rejoicing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a pretty big pickup for that defense that's already pretty legit. I mean, obviously you've got Aaron Donald and God, I can't remember his name. Old boy
Jalen Ramsey.
Yep. Mr. Big Mouth himself. That's a pretty stout defense, and I think putting a pretty solid middle linebacker there. I think he's a middle linebacker, outside linebacker, whatever he is. That'll be just another weapon for them to use. It seems like they're kind of going all in and pushing for another Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah, Von Miller's the type of player that even though he's older, he's coming off of an injury from last year. He's still the type of guy that can be a playmaker and be somebody that can disrupt the other team's offense. He may get you that extra strip sack that you need to go on to the Super Bowl or something like that. So yeah, great trade for the Rams. And I think they only gave up some draft picks, like some second, third round draft picks. So, capital that they were ready to burn and move on for a chance to win it all this year. Good deal for them.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Cardinals picking up J.J. Watt. Yeah, he's a little bit older. He's not in his prime yet or anymore, rather. But I think he's still a threat, and I think that you're going to see that, because Von Miller is there, you can't necessarily double team Aaron Donald because they probably will double team Aaron Donald still, simply because he's such a huge threat. But that'll, hopefully give Von Miller a little bit more of an opportunity to get some sacks and to pass rush and stuff like that. So even though he's not on the top of his game, I think he's still a definite threat, and offenses and O-lines are going to have to respect that entire defense. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah. And, to segue on what Jared's saying, it's a great trade for the Rams, but if they don't win it this year, then they're probably out of it for the next 3 to 5 because they only have one draft pick remaining for next year's draft. Not very good for building for the future. So it definitely is a win it now mentality. So you got to respect the push though.
Yeah, I'd say they have probably about a 3-year window to get it done, and then they'll probably have to go into a rebuild type scenario. Brandon down here says that they're a young team, and I think that's true. I think they have a few guys who are coming up in age. I think Matt Stafford is he's middle of the road per se, maybe on the back end or starting to go that way, but I still think they have a solid little chunk of time to make it happen. And it seems like I said, they're going all in, they're going for it. So nothing's holding them back other than just themselves, I think, at this point.
Now, if they go on and win the Super Bowl, I mean, obviously I didn't see this trade happening midseason, but if they go on to win the Super Bowl, how smart does that make me look for saying that Stafford was the missing piece for that entire franchise?
Yeah, absolutely.
I told you he was going to be successful there. I didn't know that they were going to make these kind of moves to make it even more successful, but I'll take it.
Yep, for sure.
This week, week 8, we saw a lot of craziness happen. And remember, a few weeks ago, I said that October was my favorite time of the year. Well, look at everything that happened on the very last day of October. MLB decided that it wasn't done yet. It wants to go on into November. So we're going to have the World Series continuing on into the first week of November. Love to see it. Love to see that extended baseball play going back to Houston for Game 6. We'll have a special guest on later tonight to discuss the World Series and all things baseball. But we also saw some very unfortunate injuries from some superstar talents around the league. And remarkably, we saw the backups take their one shot to go out there and make the name for themselves. And a lot of them made the absolute most of it.
Crazy. It's crazy. All the names that you'd never really heard of that made a splash this week. And I don't think very many people could have seen that coming, especially when Jameis Winston went down and the Jets, all things considered, are a dumpster fire of a team, and their rookie quarterback was able to make something happen. We all know that the Cowboys basically ride on Dak Prescott's shoulders. They were able to score pretty big with a quarterback we've never really even heard of. Crazy day in sports that Sunday was. Crazy day for those rookies. I mean, I'm sure they're loving it.
I'm sure it messed up a lot of people in fantasy football. So we'll be sure to cover that on Champ to Champ this Saturday. Give you who to pick up, who to plug in for injuries and bye weeks and all that. But yeah, you alluded to it. The Jets absolutely shocked the Bengals. Bengals are one of those teams that everybody thought was going to go in and steamroll the Jets. And, they put up some good offense against that Jets defense. The only problem is their defense was definitely lacking. And maybe it's because Zach Wilson went out and they weren't prepared for a backup quarterback to come in and do all the things that he was doing. But Mike White, the backup quarterback, a 5th-round draft pick who has never played an NFL snap, he had something to say about it. He came out there, his palms were sweaty, his knees weak, arms were heavy. He threw bombs and the defense wasn't ready. He was out there living up to that one shot.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy. That was a huge shock, I think. I think, like you said, the Bengals were expected to put up some big numbers against that Jets team. It didn't happen. I mean, man, that was what a wild scenario that was, and especially for a guy like you said who's never even played a snap in the NFL. For him to come out as a huge underdog and get the dub was a big move. And I mean, did he potentially win a job just now? Maybe not, but I think he might have turned some heads that weren't necessarily looking his way, and we'll just see what happens. It's one of those things where if a team is dead set on their shiny new number 1 draft pick, which probably the Jets are in Zach Wilson, then maybe this guy catches the eye of a team who's in need of a quarterback and they make a trade at some point, maybe next year or whatever, and they get something happen because he showed glimpses that he can do the thing.
It's the Gardner Minshew approach to footballing, because he wasn't ever looked at as the answer for any organization, but what he did when Nick Foles went down to injury and he had to be plugged in to play, that's what's kept him in the league for the past 3 seasons. That's why he's still a backup on a football team, is because they know if something happens, you can plug this guy in and he'll go out there and win you some football games.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think obviously the fan base and the media gives all of the attention to starters, obviously, which makes sense because they're the people that we see. But I think the job of a backup quarterback is a great job to have. I mean, would you rather have that or would you rather have an office job? I think that's a pretty easy answer. And if you can have a job in the NFL for 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be, and you're making your millions backing up somebody, you're going to be laughing all the way to the bank while the rest of us are punching in the clock for our 9 to 5s.
Yeah, absolutely. Joshua Dobbs, he's one of the backups, or was one of the backups for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not even sure if he's on the roster anymore, but he has a degree in aeronautical engineering. He could easily go get a job at NASA or something like that. He's been choosing for the past several seasons to be a backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson, while we're on the topic of the Jets, though, he did suffer a PCL injury against the Patriots in week 7. And that's what kept him out of this game in week 8. And the Jets had a quick turnaround and they played the Thursday night football game. So chances are we're going to see old Mike White go out there and ball once again. Can the Wonder Kid White do it again?
Do you know who they're playing on Thursday?
I can find out for you.
Because I think that'll be the true tell, because it's going to have to be a team that has a pretty bad defense for them to have a chance, because I still don't give the Jets a big nod. So
let's see. I'm trying to look it up on the fly.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, no worries.
I guess it'd be easier if I just checked for the Jets schedule, wouldn't it? Instead of trying to look up Thursday night football.
You'd think either way would get you there.
Sometimes whenever you're live and under the gun, it's hard to come up with those. Oh, they're playing the Colts.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be probably a little bit tougher for them, but anything can happen.
I would have thought that the Bengals would have been able to stop them too, because the Bengals are one of the premier teams in the AFC North. And I can't believe I'm saying that the Bengals are one of the best teams in the AFC North, but facts are facts. And, it is what it is. But the Jets, they have a surprising team, in my opinion.
Oh, that's a fact. I think that's one of the most surprising things to happen this season so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy to see. So I think a lot of eyes are going to be on him and the Jets come Thursday to see if he can recreate that little magic.
Yep. And I'm sure we'll talk about it on Champ to Champ if anything crazy happens. But one of the other surprising events that took place on Sunday was that the Saints continue to be the only team that dominates the Bucs, no matter who the quarterback is, apparently, because Jameis Winston left out of the game with an apparent knee injury. Now it's been reported that he has torn ACL and he's done for the season. So Saints are once again in the midst of quarterback drama, not knowing who's going to start, who's going to be there. Of course, Taysom Hill should be the next man up, but he's been in concussion protocol for like 4 weeks. So who's up? Trevor Simeon, another journeyman quarterback that's played for the Jets, played for the Broncos, played all over the place. Now in New Orleans as the third string quarterback, goes out there and beats TB12. How crazy of a situation was he put in to where he had to go out there against the GOAT, and then he performed the way that he did and carried the Saints to a victory. He even made some brilliant passes along the way.
It just seems like Sean Payton has the Bucs number, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, what the situation is. I just think it's one of those things where rivals that play each other constantly just get used to how the other team plays and what their play calling is and how to beat it. And I think we can all agree that Sean Payton is one of the more top tier type head coaches out there, and it seems like he can just do whatever he wants against that team with third string quarterbacks, and he still doesn't have Michael Thomas. I mean, that team is so much more different than it was a year and a half ago, and they still can do it. And I mean, like you said, against the GOAT Tom Brady, who did relatively well for himself. He threw like 4 touchdowns. I mean, he's doing it himself too, but it still has no match for the Saints. And it's a crazy game to watch year in and year out, because they're like the one team that can always put the screws to the Bucs, no matter how much of a favorite they are or whatever for anything. It's still the Saints game, it seems like.
Yeah, you're right. He did throw for 4 passing touchdowns, but he also was responsible for 3 turnovers. since becoming the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Bucks, Tom Brady has lost 7 games total. 3 of them have been to the New Orleans Saints.
That's insane.
And they still have another one yet to go this season. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
And you alluded to Mike Thomas coming back. It's one of those things like, yes, he's finally supposed to be coming back, but now he's coming back and doesn't even know who the starting quarterback is. Jameis Winston was the starting quarterback, and he's been struggling all season long without an offensive weapon. He was finally set to get that piece back. And then this happens to him. It's like, man, good things cannot happen to this guy. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. And I think this was the year for Jameis Winston to prove all the doubters wrong, and seemed like he was doing okay. Like you said, he definitely was desperate for a weapon out there other than Kamara, and I think Michael Thomas definitely could have been that for him. And now here we are talking about an ACL tear. That's tough for a mobile quarterback. He's going to be out for quite a while, and it's going to be a rough go after however long it takes for him to rehab and come back. And you always hate to see that stuff, especially for a guy who has talent, but has always kind of struggled or whatever. And now I think he's found a fit in this Saints team, and they gave him the keys, but injuries happen in football. So hopefully he can bounce back.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's just unfortunate the situation that Jameis Winston is in right now. I hope the Saints are able to figure out what's going to happen going forward. We have a question that's a fantasy football related question. Normally we don't address those on this show, but this one I've just got to give a quick nod to. He asked, should I trade Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones for CMC and Chubba Hubbard? Absolutely not. For CMC and Chubba Hubbard, you're basically getting one guy for the combination of Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones. Do not do that. That's a bad deal. I know you've got a stacked roster and you've got to pretty much keep one of those guys on the bench, but I would rather have that guy on the bench as a backup than to have an injured player and the injured player's backup player who hasn't really done much. So
yeah, that's an easy one.
Let's see. We got the Godfather commenting in here. What's up? How you doing there, Jim? Hope you're having a good night. The Seahawks. Let's talk about them for a second, Zach. That's another team that's running with a backup quarterback who's trying to make the most of his one shot to go out there and be a starter. Russell Wilson has his messed up fingers and all that stuff. And Geno Smith, yet another former Jets quarterback. You noticing this trend of former Jets quarterbacks that are getting plugged in here and winning games all of a sudden? Geno Smith comes out there and he's been balling. Of course, they were playing against the lackluster Jacksonville Jags this week, so can't really say much there. It's crazy to think that this is a defense that 4 to 5 years ago was one of the best that we've ever seen, and now all of a sudden they're absolutely terrible. But Geno Smith, this is a guy you were talking about, Mike White. Did he land himself a job somewhere? Geno Smith, with the performance that he's had for the past few weeks, this is a guy I could see that has possibly landed himself another job somewhere, maybe as a starter, maybe as a backup for another team or something. But this is a guy that's proven that he's still NFL capable and NFL ready.
Yeah, 100%. I think he has probably more of a nod than one of these rookies because he's a veteran, and I think he's shown for a few years. Obviously, he's been a backup, so he doesn't really get the play time to show off his skills and his ability. But I think you're right. I think stepping in for Russell Wilson was a big shoe to fill, and it seems like he's filled it. All things considered, that offense is still pretty good. I mean, that's a tough division that they play in, and I think they basically have to rely on that offense to keep up with any other team because they really don't have a defense to speak of. So, yeah, I mean, for him to come in like that and do as well as he did, I think if he doesn't have a permanent job with somebody, whether a starter or a backup, then that would be a shame because that's a guy you absolutely want as at least your backup so that like we said earlier, that if something goes wrong, he can step in and actually lead the team and run the team instead of just be a dumpster fire.
Well, and he's doing it without Chris Carson, their starting running back, and it's a limited playbook because he's the backup. He hasn't had those first team reps that a lot of these guys would have. So he's doing it with a limited play set and limited players to help him. He's dissecting defenses out there. He's looking like a true veteran. Good for him.
Absolutely.
And then you also mentioned this one a little bit earlier, but the Dallas Cowboys beat the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football, and the call was Cooper to Cooper because it was Cooper Rush throwing the ball to Amari Cooper in the corner of the end zone to give the Dallas Cowboys the game-winning touchdown. And everyone kind of thought that with Dak not being in the lineup, it was announced before the game that he was out with his calf injury to that same leg that he injured last season. Everyone kind of thought like, oh, the Cowboys are just punting this one. They're in the NFC East. They've got a pretty good lead over all the other teams out there. They're just going to go ahead and punt this one, be safe and not get Dak injured. This is a game that the Vikings are going to go out there and win. And then Cooper Rush comes out there and says, not so fast. Let me show you what I got. Here's my one shot to make a name for myself. And here we are on Monday night still talking about Cooper Rush. What do you think of that?
Craziness. I thought for sure that if Dak went down again, that this team would fail because he's the glue that holds everything together. And without him, that whole team, at least I thought, would not work. And apparently that's not the case. I think a lot of that can be routed back to just how many, good wide receivers they have on that team. And I think that really makes a difference. Zeke being a threat, I think, helps too. He's maybe not necessarily, the go-to workhorse that you might want, but him being there, I think, just alone is a threat to at least keep defenses honest. And this kid went out there and used every weapon that he possibly could. So yeah, hats off to him. I mean, that's another hard job and a hard thing to walk into. That's Dak's team. They just paid him a huge contract. They're trying to win a Super Bowl, as they always are. And their bright star and Dak goes down. And like you said, everybody thinks that they're just kind of going to call this one in and move on. But nope, that's not the case. He went out there and tried to make something happen, and he did.
Yeah, he threw for over 300 yards, had a couple of touchdown passes. He looked poised. He looked really good. This is another situation where the Cowboys, they have to be happy with what they saw on the field, because even a game that everyone assumed they would lose, they went out there and still won. The Godfather's asking, how long is Dak supposed to be out for? I think that they just had him out as a precaution. I don't think he has any serious injury that's going to keep him out for an extended period of time, but it is something that we'll keep an eye on, and we'll update more on Saturday night whenever we're doing our fantasy football rosters and telling you who to sit and start. But I think that he should be fine to start next week.
Yeah, from all accounts, all they're really saying is that there's a calf injury, and yeah, like you said, he's not on the IR or anything like that. So I think he should be okay, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, and hopefully it's something that he can, kind of rest and figure out and be good to go. So yeah, I guess just stay tuned on the news for that one.
Yep. The Patriots finally won a 50-50 game. This season they've had a lot of these games that have come down to Mac Jones having the ball at the end of the game and then not being able to drive the ball, or giving up a last minute touchdown or something like that, to where they could have won a lot of these games. Finally, they were able to secure a victory and hold off an offense that is a formidable offense. We had one of those questions that came through on Champ to Champ this week that asked if they should start Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. And we both said start Joe Burrow, because the Patriots defense can shut down a team, and they can shut down these good quarterbacks. Just ask Tom Brady whenever he played up in New England. And that's pretty much what happened. The Pats defense was able to nullify Justin Herbert. They even got a pick six off of them. They scored a lot of points on fantasy. I know a lot of Patriots fans were pretty happy for that. Mac Jones, he was throwing at nobody last night, Jim said, and he was overthrowing. That was his worst performance of the season, but they got the job done. This is a team that could have beat the Bucs. They could have beat the Cowboys, and they should have beat the Dolphins in week 1. This is a team that right now we could be looking at a 7-1 Patriots team instead of a 4-4 team if they just hit those passes whenever it counted the most.
Sure.
I mean, this team is much better than their record might indicate.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just for the simple fact of, even as good as Mac Jones has been, he's still a rookie. I mean, he still has a lot of things to learn and a lot of things to just simply get used to. When you move up in difficulty, which he moved up to the highest level that there is in football, there's a lot that comes with that, and you're going to make mistakes. I mean, that's just something that happens. If you look back at the career of Peyton Manning, he had a terrible rookie year with interceptions and stuff like that. So even the great ones have a bit of a rough time when it comes to that rookie year. Like we keep saying, Mac Jones has simply just gone above and beyond anyone's expectations for what was put on his shoulders and what he has to use and what he has to play with. And it's pretty interesting to watch because, like you said, a lot of the credit needs to go to that defense because they're really what keeps them in games. And then the offense does what they can. They do enough to win games. And I think you're right. I think if a few things went their way, and if maybe they had a few more little pieces to plug in, then those games that were close would have been wins for them. But I think there's really nothing to hang your head about if you're a Patriots fan or if you're Mac Jones or anything like that, because keep chugging, keep learning, and keep playing. And I think good things will eventually start happening.
Yeah. And, they're sitting at 4-4 now. They're a 500 team. They're coming up on a bye week pretty soon. So that'll be good for them to rest and, heal up some of these wounds that they've got. But 4-4, 500, that's not so bad. Like I said, though, much like my fantasy football team, don't let that record indicate how good that team can really be.
Right.
Because at 4-4, they can still go out there and beat some teams. Some other major news that has happened in the NFL. This one has huge fantasy football implications. Derrick Henry suffers a foot fracture and is going to have season-ending surgery, out for the year. The Tennessee Titans have made a corresponding move to pick up former MVP Adrian Peterson, who is like 400 years old at this point, but apparently can still go out there and run the rock. Wow. This is a major blow to the Tennessee Titans.
Huge. I mean, this is about as big as it gets. I do not know if Ryan Tannehill is going to be able to play without the monster that is Derrick Henry. This is huge for them. I mean, this might just be curtains for them. I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, this is rough. And yet again, we're talking about a prominent, big name running back going down for an injury. And I mean, it seems to be the case these days. Obviously we've had CMC and Barkley go down for a couple of years now. And it sucks to see because I think the running backs that are elite at their position, like those guys are electric to watch, but it seems like it's almost inevitable for these guys to go down with season-ending injuries and stuff like that. It's terrible. And honestly, I think if I was a owner and I had one of those, prominent running backs that wants a mega deal eventually, I'd probably think twice about giving him that deal because at a certain point, I think you're going to have diminishing returns because there's no way in this league that those running backs can survive. I mean, I think that's point proven with all of these top elite level running backs going down with these injuries. I don't think they're necessarily worth the money anymore. I mean, it's a useful tool to have, I think, but at what cost? If you have to pay a guy X amount of money and that takes up that cap space and he's injured, he's not doing anything for you. So it's really hard for me to kind of justify paying those running backs those huge contracts when statistics show that they're going to get injured and it's going to be a big one. And then you have a huge hole in your offense.
Yeah. That's something that we both talked about quite a bit is not paying these guys because you can get just as much productivity from guys like Joe Mixon that they go out there and they just grind week in and week out, and then you can replace them with fresh legs in a few years whenever they want to go off and get their big paycheck somewhere else. I like you. I don't know that I would want to spend all that money that somebody like a CMC, somebody like a Zeke, a Derrick Henry, like they're sucking up such a huge percentage of that salary cap. It is hard to justify, but at the same time, how do you let somebody like that walk?
Trade.
Yeah, that's a good point. Get pieces back in return.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our fantasy booms and busts. Let's get that out of the way and talk about who we thought was great and who we thought was lackluster this week. Zach, you had some interesting choices going on, so why don't you go ahead and kick it off with your quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my quarterback boom, I landed on Ryan Tannehill simply because I think the Tom Brady's and the Josh Allens of the world are almost expected to boom at this point. But I think Ryan Tannehill has been in a bit of a rut for the past few weeks. I myself started Sam Darnold over him for a couple of weeks, and for one of those weeks it panned out for me. But I think finally Ryan Tannehill kind of caught his stride and was able to do enough to at least gain my attention. He threw for 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then of course kind of shot himself in the ass with 2 interceptions. And minus those 2 interceptions, that would have been a hell of a day for him. But nonetheless, 21 points from Ryan Tannehill. I'll take it any day of the week. So I think this is a step in the right direction for him, a guy who's kind of been on the downward slide. And honestly, in my opinion, he has zero excuses for not lighting up the field. Now, I guess maybe you could say that without Derrick Henry, all the defense eyes are going to be on him. So it's going to be hard for him to achieve this again, maybe. But I think at least for this week, he finally gave me something and anyone else who started him.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I agree with you that he is taking those steps in the right direction, but Brandon Janis is saying don't start him next week. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because without Derrick Henry, what are they going to be forced to do? Throw the football.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's going to have a lot more opportunity than handing the ball to Derrick Henry 70% of their time. My boom for the week was a guy that has pretty much boomed all season long, and that's Matthew Stafford. Dude put up 24.2 points. He passed for over 300 yards for the 5th time this season and had 3 touchdowns. This guy, he's been out there. He's balling, and gotta respect the man's game. He's had a great season and another great week. The reason that I mentioned him was because he has got to be one of those guys that we talk about in the MVP conversation as we approach mid-season. And another guy that a lot of people have talked about as a potential MVP is a guy that you had that was a bust this week.
Are we talking about running backs?
No, we're talking about your bust quarterback.
Oh, bust quarterback. Okay. Yeah, I've got Kyler Murray. And like you said, an MVP caliber type quarterback just really wasn't able to make it happen this week against Green Bay, which we kind of knew that was going to be a quarterback versus quarterback game type thing. I kind of thought that the Arizona defense would have a little bit more success than they did, but maybe not having JJ Watt anymore has hurt them more than we thought. Nonetheless, Kyler Murray had a less than stellar game. 274 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, which gave him 9 points in fantasy. That's rough. And we could say that maybe D-Hop going out early didn't help matters. So it
certainly didn't help me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just a rough outing as a whole for them, and they ended up losing at the end of that game. So yeah, not a great week for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and my bust quarterback it's kind of an anomaly. We were talking about it before we went live, but Jalen Hurts only put up 11.22 points. He had 14 passes for 103 yards and added about 71 yards on the ground. But this is for a team that scored 44 points.
It's insane.
How can a team that scored 44 points not get a single point from the quarterback position? It blows my mind.
Yeah, and I would look at that matchup and say they're going against the Detroit Lions, who are one of the bottom tier teams of the entire year, if not the entire decade or however long you want to talk about it. put in Jalen Hurts, he's going to ball out against that terrible defense. Didn't happen. Apparently they ran the ball constantly, I guess. So, man, that's quite an anomaly for them to put up that many points and your quarterback has almost nothing to do with it.
Nothing to show. Yeah. Zach, you got a question coming in from the Godfather here. If you want to go ahead and take that one.
Well, I will say that Brandon won by quite the landslide, and finally, Lady Luck was on his side this week.
The champ is here, baby. Like I said, at 4-4, don't let the record indicate how good that team could possibly be, because we can lay the smackdown.
Yep.
My boom running back for the week, I got Naji Harris. This is a dude that he stepped up when he needed it. The Steelers have not looked good for all season. They only scored 15 points on Sunday against the Browns, but Naji Harris was one of those guys that did everything he could to make sure that they got on the board. He scored 21 fantasy points. He had 91 rushing yards, scored a touchdown. He went 3 for 3 receiving for 29 yards. This dude went out there and put the team on his back. We've said all along that if the Steelers were going to be anything this year, Naji Harris was going to be one of those guys that needed to do the work, and he did the work this past Sunday.
Yep, 100% on that one. And that's a guy who I had at least in my vision for draft day, and until now he's kind of been a little quiet, a little mediocre, but yeah, he blew up this week, and I think if he can do more of that, then that's good for the Steelers.
Yep. What about you? Who boomed for you as a running back?
I've got Michael Carter for the Jets, a guy who I had not heard of until this week. And I doubt very many people actually started him unless they're just that either desperate or that crazy or whatever it might be. Nonetheless, this guy came out of absolute nowhere and posted up 32 points. He got 77 yards rushing touchdown, and then obviously the bulk of his success was 9 catches for 95 yards, which is kind of like we've been talking about for a few weeks now, those dual threat running backs that can catch out of the backfield and stuff like that. That's a huge weapon, and it seems like this guy kind of fits into that mold, and if he can do a little bit more of this, then might be good for the Jets.
And this is a dude that's only rostered in about 70% of ESPN leagues. So there's a good chance that he might be available in yours. So there's you a free tip. He is rostered in our league, Zach. I just checked, but he was on the bench with his 32 points. That covers the boom running backs, but what about the busts? For me, I've got Dalvin Cook as a bust running back. He's 7.8 points. He had 78 yards rushing and nothing else. He had a couple passes thrown his way, but he dropped both of them. So Dalvin Cook, a dude that the Vikings needed in crunch time against a backup quarterback-led Dallas Cowboys team, and he really couldn't do anything to help him.
Yeah, I really didn't honestly understand the majority of that Vikings team for that game. That's one that we even talked about on Saturday's show. They should ball out. I mean, they should be lighting up the scoreboard. Didn't really happen, and yeah, Dalvin Cook, I think, has had a bit of a down year this year. It's kind of strange. I don't really understand it. My bust running back is going to be Nick Chubb, a guy who, again, is one of those workhorses, one of those guys that the Browns kind of depend on. He does split time with old boy Kareem Hunt, but this game was just not it for him against that AFC North rival, Pittsburgh. He got 61 yards, and that's it. 7.9 points in fantasy. That's not great. It was a very low scoring game anyway, 10-15. So I guess it just wasn't an offensive day for them on either side of the ball there. So yeah, just not great for him at all.
The Browns just haven't had the offensive fire that we thought that they should have going into the season, and what they demonstrated last year with the same lineup pretty much. They just haven't been able to really get it going. I don't know if it's injury related or if it's just not clicking for him, but something's not right there.
Absolutely.
Wide receiver booms. And this was a guy that I called out specifically on C2C on Saturday, Michael Pittman Jr. This is a dude for the Indianapolis Colts, and I told you he was going to go off. He dropped 30.6 points. He went 10 for 15 receiving for 86 yards and had 2 touchdowns. what can I say? Like this has been Carson Wentz's favorite target all season long. That trend continues, and he's going to keep putting up huge weeks.
Yeah, I hope at least a few people out there that caught the show were able to plug him in if they were questionable on it or whatever, because that was a huge game for him, and that was a huge call by you. So hats off on that one. That was a stellar call. For me, I've got Tyler Lockett as my boom, a guy who a lot of people maybe would say that plays second fiddle to DK Metcalf, but at least for this week, it seems like Geno Smith was able to hit him a few times for 12 receptions, 142 yards, which got him 26 points. That's pretty good for a guy who, for most people, fits into a flex spot, maybe a wide receiver 2 spot. So that's a pretty good game for him, and I think a good game for a team who is missing their franchise quarterback. So hats off to those guys for being able to put up those numbers.
That goes back to Geno Smith earning a paycheck and earning his chance to keep playing in the NFL for the future.
Absolutely.
My bust wide receiver is Emmanuel Sanders. This dude was targeted 4 times and had 0 receptions, put up a whopping 0 points in fantasy football. And one of the reasons that I put him as my bust for the week is someone actually offered me a trade for Emmanuel Sanders to give up D-Hop. So
wow.
I know D-Hop didn't put up huge numbers, but I'm glad that I didn't pull the trigger on that trade. It had a running back attached to it as well, but Emmanuel Sanders just isn't the type of wide receiver that can replace a D-Hop.
Yeah, and apparently he can't even catch the 4 targets that were thrown to him, so that's pretty rough.
Targets is a weird stat anyway, because just because you're targeted doesn't mean that it was a catchable ball.
Yeah, that's true.
Drops is more indicative of the wide receiver didn't catch the ball that he could have caught. A target just meant that the ball was in his vicinity.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something to remember. My wide receiver bust for this week is going to be Jamar Chase. And again, back to the Saturday show, we all just assumed that the Bengals were going to be able to just tear it up against the Jets. Didn't happen. Jamar Chase just simply had a down game, even with a touchdown. He was only targeted 3 times. Well, I don't know about targeted, but he had 3 receptions, 32 yards in that 1 touchdown, which gave him 13 points, which isn't an awful outing, but for Joe Burrow's number 1 target to not put up huge numbers against the Jets defense, pretty surprising. Not great. Yeah, that was just a huge fluke as a whole for the Bengals.
Yeah, and Jamar Chase, I think he did catch 1 touchdown, but it was taken off the board. So, kind of sucks whenever penalties get in the way. But you're right. That's a guy that he's been balling all season long, and he didn't step up when the Bengals needed it. However, Tyler Boyd did.
I know.
And that's another guy that I mentioned on Champ to Champ that you should probably put in your starting lineups, and you didn't listen to that advice. So
I probably still would have been down by about 20 or 30 points anyway.
Well, it is what it is. Marquez Callaway just hasn't been the answer for the Saints, and Tyler Boyd needs to be your flex going forward.
Yeah, I've put him in for a few weeks, and then he'll get 7, 8, 9 points, and then you take him out, and he gets almost 20 points. Yeah. It's just, that's fantasy football for you.
That is fantasy football for you. But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the November Classic, the World Series. It's been a pretty great postseason, and I'm excited that we're at the World Series, and it's turned into a pretty good one with the Atlanta Braves and the Houston Astros now going back to Houston with the Braves up 3-2. Let's bring in our old friend and baseball correspondent and host of the Pesky Report podcast, Mr. Brad Chandler. Brad, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Long time no talk. I know you've been out busy doing your whole Pesky Report thing for the whole entire baseball season, covering the Boston Red Sox. And I do want to start off our conversation talking about Jerry Remy. Of course, Red Sox Nation suffered a monumental loss yesterday whenever it was announced that Jerry Remy finally passed away from his 13-year battle with cancer. And it's crazy because we all just saw him throw out the first pitch in the ALCS against
Nope.
the Astros
It was
or
the,
ALDS,
it was actually the wild card.
the wild card. That I knew it was
October
sometime
5th.
recently.
It
Yeah,
was
okay.
against the
Playoff game.
Yankees. Right.
Yeah, it was against the Yankees. Gotcha. I was thinking it was against the Astros for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, we saw him go out there and he threw the ball to Eck, and that he was out there with the oxygen on, and he looked like he was a little bit weak, but he was in good spirits.
Right.
And then less than a month later, he's gone. How has that impacted your group on Twitter and on Facebook, and what kind of sentiments are you seeing being passed around about Rim Dog?
In all honesty, I don't think it's going to actually hit anybody until opening day. Because the moment you have that other person in the seat next to Dave O'Brien, it's going to be like, oh, wait, we're not hearing Remy anymore. Like I've been watching the Red Sox on NESN since about 2003. So almost every time I've watched the Red Sox, it's been with Jerry Remy. And I think I was probably more upset about the Don Orsillo being fired or not coming back than Mookie Betts being traded. And like, I don't know how I'm going to feel when that first game is played and Jerry's not there, because like there were so many great memories of him. We just recorded our podcast a few moments ago, and we were talking about our favorite memories and whatnot. There was the pizza, the pizza that was thrown at a guy. There was the tooth incident. There was actually one where they were looking at a couple of couples sitting in the stands, and one of the guys went and grabbed his girlfriend's boob, and Remy's just like, "Whoops!" And then literally they couldn't talk for like 4 pitches. But I mean, he's a part of the Boston Red Sox through and through. I mean, he grew up a Red Sox fan. He played for the Red Sox for 7 years. He did commentary for the Red Sox for 30-something years. I mean, he's going to be missed. I mean, he's the guy that came up with Big Papi.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is definitely going to be missed. And Brad, some of those funny moments happen on those West Coast road trips whenever it's 1:00 in the morning on the East Coast and the NESN ratings are bottomed out and they're just trying to entertain themselves and talk about whatever is going on, eating crickets and stuff like that. So Jerry Remy will be missed. I'm torn between if I want the next guy to come in and say Buenas noches, amigos,
No,
or just leave it as is, because that was kind of his catch line.
There's a petition going around right now to change the name of Jersey Street to Jerry Remy Way.
Oh, wow.
So,
And I support that. Jersey Street doesn't really have any kind of significant ties to the team. I know that was the original name like a million years ago, but
yeah,
we all grew up with it being Yawkey Way, and then
right.
it changed from Yawkey Way back to Jersey Street because of cancel culture and all that. But I think Jerry Remy Way would be an appropriate way to honor the man that spent his entire life side for a couple years in Boston with the Red Sox.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
But let's talk about the World Series, Brad. That's why we brought you in. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. It's a shame that the Red Sox aren't in the World Series, because this is something that they could definitely use to rally around and win it for Jerry. But alas, they didn't make it there, and we have the Houston Astros going back to Houston, down a game to the Atlanta Braves. What do you think about the World Series so far?
I think that there are way too many people too concerned with the 2017 cheating scandal to be like, oh, I'm not rooting for the Astros because they cheated. Like we were just talking about this earlier, and I'm rooting for the Braves, but I'm not rooting for the Braves because I hate the Astros because of 2017. I'm a Sox fan. Our manager was a part of that. He was supposedly the mastermind, which I don't believe that's true at all. But he was a part of it. He was the bench coach. And when somebody talks crap about the Astros for their cheating thing, and they're like, oh, yeah, Alex Cora is the greatest, it's like being kind of hypocritical. My reasoning for rooting for the Atlanta Braves is because of Freddie Freeman. I want to see him win a ring.
I agree with that.
I'm extremely scared of Altuve and Correa, especially in the postseason. They're both big bats. Alvarez has been a monster in the postseason. He hasn't really been doing much in the World Series yet. But, I mean, who would have thought that Marlon Gonzalez would have had a significant hit for the in the World Series this year?
Crazy.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that, you know, for me, I'm also cheering for the Braves, not because I'm, you know, still up in arms about the 2017 scandal or anything like that. In fact, I'm increasingly more happy whenever I hear people talk about, oh, I don't want the Astros to win because of this reason, because I don't like this, or because you know, I don't want to cheer for Carlos Correa or whatever the case may be, and they don't mention the 2017 aspect of it all.
I think Carlos Correa is he's a great athlete. He's a scary batter. He's scary in the box no matter what. But he's kind of an ass.
Sure.
You know, and there's people out there that are talking about how Carlos Correa would be great for the Red Sox and whatnot. And I 100% agree with that. And then there's people out there that are just like, nope, don't want him. He was a part of the 2017 Astros. Don't want him.
Yeah, when that conversation comes up, I'm not necessarily inclined to jump on it, just because if you pay for Carlos Correa, then who do you not pay? Because you're not going to continue to pay Bogey, you're not going to pay Devers, and you're not going to pay Correa to be your middle infielders.
Right? No, I agree.
So that's where I draw the line. But I think ultimately in free agency he'll end up in New York. But that's just
I don't think he will.
I think that's the team that's going to be trying to put a piece in place, and they know that Gleyber Torres and Andujar are not the answers as far as their infield is concerned.
I believe they are going to go after Corey Seager.
Interesting.
That would be an interesting one too.
I know
Trevor Story also on the free agent
the
block.
Athletic just was it the Athletic or Bleacher Report? Someone just posted up about how the Red Sox, the Yankees are sour over Trevor Story. So I don't think they're going to be going for him.
That bodes well for you, Zach.
Yeah, we'll see.
Zach's cheering for him to end up in St. Louis.
Anybody, honestly, any of those big time shortstops.
I think, in all honesty, I think they need to stick with that the kid from Brooklyn. They need to give him the shot. I mean, I know it's a stacked shortstop. The shortstops are pretty stacked this offseason, but Andrew Velazquez, I believe his name is, for the Yankees. I mean, he showed a little bit of spark for that team in the 2021 season, and he did pretty good. I mean, he might not have a power bat. Last year, I thought they should have gone after Andrelton Simmons. They didn't, and then look what happened. They needed defensive shortstop. They don't have one.
I do think that the Yankees are probably going to have to do at least something this offseason to at least make their fans somewhat happy, because if they're going to keep Aaron Boone around, how do they expect to get better as a team?
That actually surprised me.
Oh yeah, it was a huge surprise.
That was a shock, especially with pretty much everybody else gone. But okay, they go and get somebody else, but you also got to remember you have the Stanton contract, half of that. You've got all of the Garrett Cole contract, and then next year you have to start paying Judge.
Yep, that's true.
So, I mean, are they going to go over the luxury tax? And whatever the CBA is going to be, you know, we don't know what that's going to be because that ends in December. But they still, I don't know. Hal doesn't seem to want to go over that number. And if he stays that way, I don't see them getting someone big because they have to sign Judge.
Yeah, and I think that might not be the smartest move, but I think you're right. I think they're going to sign it simply because he seems to be a fan favorite. People love him there, whether he's injured or not, whether he's productive or not. I think they are going to sign him simply because he sells tickets, he sells jerseys. You know, he's almost been the face of the Yankees for a few years now, and he's just solidified himself with that team.
And I was just having a conversation with a Yankee fan at work about this. I'm like, who would you rather have on your team, Stanton or Judge?
That's a tough decision because, I mean, honestly,
Stanton's been nasty in the postseason.
He has, but then he also has that injury bug.
So does
I don't know.
Judge.
Yeah, that's why I say I think that's a tough decision there because I think Judge brings a little bit more to the table because of his huge arm in right field, whereas Stanton is almost basically just a DH. But you're right. I mean, Stanton is filthy in the box, and when he's right and when he's healthy, he's super dangerous. So that's a tough one if I had to pick.
We can address that at a later date because the Yankees are irrelevant right now because they're not playing Game 6 in the World Series tomorrow night. So let's talk about starting pitching matchups for tomorrow night. We've got Max Fried going for the Atlanta Braves and Luis Garcia for the Houston Astros.
God,
Is this the best opportunity for the Braves to close it out? Because without Charlie Morton, who's really going to come in and pitch Game 7?
It really is the best that they have. And unfortunately, it's against Garcia, who takes like 20 minutes to throw the ball every time. I honestly want someone to kick him right between the legs. Like, seriously, dude, just stop it. Think needs to teach him how to actually throw a ball. It was so annoying watching him in the ALCS. But I think that Max Fried is the best option, and their bullpen. Granted, last night they didn't do all that great, but I still think that they have a better bullpen over the Astros, and I like the offense, but the offense for both teams are just stacked.
Yeah, I think that's where the big question is that pitching. I mean, starting pitching and bullpen. I think that's where either one team or the other goes, is because last night, like you said, both bullpens were just not it. And are they going to be taxed for this game? Are they going to get at least 1 day's rest and be all right? It's going to be tough to say.
My big question here is, did Jack Peterson have his pearl necklace yesterday?
Yeah, I think his jeweler flew out and delivered him one.
I can't believe that actually happened.
I mean, baseball players have money to spend, and they waste it on extravagant things all the time. Just look at Verdugo and his gold chains and stuff.
Yeah, he's got one that's dedicated to Kobe. And is it Gigi or Gigi?
Yeah,
his daughter.
Gigi.
Yeah, Gigi, and then he's got a SpongeBob on it. So yeah.
Speaking of Kobe's estate just raked in $400 million today.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, apparently Coca-Cola bought the Body Armor brand, and Kobe was a big investor in that company, and so yeah, they just got a crap ton of money. But anyway, yeah, baseball.
And I'm sitting here drowning in my sorrow.
Yep. We're just three guys on the internet talking to our screens.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It is what it is. Make savvy investments, though.
I'd like to see Snicker. I want to see Dusty win, but I don't. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Snitker win because I want to see Freeman win, but I can't hate Baker. So, but yeah. I think that Atlanta's going to win tomorrow.
So you're saying Braves in 6. Zach, who do you got?
I think I hope it goes to a Game 7 because there's no two better words in sports. But I could definitely see the Braves closing it out tomorrow. If Max Fried has a good game, if he can go 6-7 innings without giving up more than 2 or 3 runs, I think that'll be a solid start for him because I think they need that. I think they cannot rely on their bullpen yet again. It's hard to say because I think the Braves in particular are kind of a wild team to talk about because what would happen in this World Series if Acuna was healthy? I mean, I almost think he's an afterthought because they are just so spectacular without him. I mean, Soler is a guy that I never really paid much attention to, and he has just been all over the scoreboard, all over the highlights, and it's almost like they don't even need Acuna to win this World Series, which
Rosario
is crazy.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rosario has been nasty. I've been really happy with the Jock Peterson trade. Him playing against the Houston Astros is like, all right, I get to get back at you for the 2017.
They're coming for you, Brad.
I'm not hurt though. That's
It's
the
a
ambulance.
Yeah, so I agree with both of you guys though. I've got Braves in 6. However, if it goes to 7, I've got Astros in 7.
I'm 100% behind that. If it goes to a game 7, it's going to be Astros.
Yeah.
That park is just so loud. Did you see that they have to tell their fans to cheer?
I
Really?
did see that, which is kind of interesting because you would think in the World Series, this is a team that's been in the playoffs for several years now. They know what to do. It's kind of weird.
That is strange.
They have like these tarps. People go out on the field in between the innings and whatnot, and they're like, cheer, or let's get loud or whatever. It's like, really? This is what you have to do?
That's wild.
We have a buddy, Zach and I do. He's a occasional guest on the show, and we text with him constantly. He's a Houston native, and he's just getting into baseball, and he's really been following the Astros in this run. And I think we finally got him fully baptized to where he's going to be watching next season whenever the regular season comes along, win or lose.
Man, I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
He went out and bought his first Houston Astros jersey and all this stuff. He's been wearing it during the games. It's been a lot of fun seeing his progression.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that's been like 2-3 years of work. I mean, me and Brandon have been pounding this guy like, hey, watch baseball. And he's been, I've got this, I've got that. It's great background. He wouldn't listen to it. And then he finally started saying, I like October baseball, which who can blame him? But right. I think you're right. Finally, watching this team in the postseason make something happen is going to finally break through, and he's going to be watching by March, hopefully, of next year. I love turning people into baseball fans because I think once you get past it's boring and whatever else other people say, and you really start to appreciate the sport, it's one of the best ones out there because for 6 months of the year, you get to watch something almost every night, and it's exciting. Right. And I think he has a good team to watch, so I'm all for it.
I probably watched 140 games this season.
Nice.
On TV, and I probably I went to probably about 15 different games. I went to see the Mets. I went to go see the Red Sox and Yankees in New York. I finally got to sit up on the Green Monster.
Nice.
Which, if I'm not gonna lie, if you ever get a chance, please do it. It's literally the best thing I've ever done at Fenway. Very expensive tickets though.
Oh, I'm sure.
400. Absolutely insane. It was a birthday gift though. So, but I had fun. It was my first year doing the podcast. Which was fantastic. We ended up getting up to rank number 43 on the Chartable, in the ranks on Chartable. So
nice.
A lot of baseball, and I learned so much this season.
That's awesome. Before we hop off here, Brad, why don't you go ahead and give a plug to your podcast and let people know where they can find you and what it is that you guys really enjoy talking about.
All right, you guys can find us on Instagram. Yeah, that's true. What a weird last name. Bauer, huh?
Never heard that one before.
Yeah. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm extremely I'm all over Twitter. I don't use really Facebook or anything else, but you can find us there at Pesky Report. We talk about the Boston Red Sox. We do a podcast episode after each series during the season. This now, with it being the off season, we're going to do our next episode after the World Series ends, and then we're going to be doing one episode a week. And yeah, we just talk Red Sox. We will be talking a lot about baseball, other teams and whatnot. during the off season because not everything is going to be about the Red Sox. But once the season starts, that's where we are. Our heads are focused right on the Red Sox.
Right on. It's a good follow if you are a Red Sox fan for sure. Like he said, they keep you up to date on every series that happens. So the morning after any series, you'll have a fresh podcast ready to hear their opinions and their analysis. And I know you had a special guest on the very first episode of your show that absolutely nailed the season wins total. So that's pretty unprecedented too, huh?
Yeah, that clown.
Yeah.
Actually, Brandon has been on the show a few times. You're more than welcome to come on anytime, man. And same with you, Zach. Yeah, it's been a blast. Honestly, I have to thank the both of you guys for everything because I started blogging and you guys gave me the opportunity to blog under you. Then I started moving up with the blogging. And then I started doing the podcasting. And then once I got into podcasting, I just completely stopped blogging. In my opinion, podcasting it's just better for me because I have ADHD. And when I go to start blogging, it's like, well, I can't write that. And then it's delete. It's like I spend 3 hours trying to write something that should take only 40 minutes.
Yeah. Me and Brandon kind of got our start similarly to that. We had a little stupid blog on Facebook that we contributed to, and then we decided to build this. And I think this is leaps and bounds more fun to do and more entertaining to do. And I think podcasting is like a bug that once you catch it, man, it's hard to shake because I think it's so fun to not only just get around your buddies and talk uninterrupted for an hour or so about sports or whatever it might be. And then you get to see all the engagement and stuff and hear people's opinions. It's so much fun.
Right.
Yeah, and with us, we also like to talk about fantasy football and stuff like that. So we're constantly getting engagement from people that have different scenario based questions for their fantasy football lineups, and it's been an absolute thrill to try to help those people go out and win their leagues, win their matchups, and hope that they can hoist their own championship belts at the end of their seasons and all that stuff. So it's been rewarding for us too whenever we hear the feedback from people saying oh, you guys helped me do this. And it's like, wow, we're just two guys, but we help somebody that we don't even know do something that they wanted to do.
I'll tell you what, man, we have this one kid who is from Taiwan who's a Red Sox fan, and he constantly hits us up and he's asking us, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of that? And it's he's been one of my favorite follows just because he's so engaging. A lot of people are engaging, but just the fact that he's from Taiwan and he's listening to us, we get the program that the site that we use to upload our stuff. It lets us know geographically wherever people are listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just all of our people who listen to us and whatnot, they'll contact us and be like, hey, what do you think of this? They'll send us questions asking, hey, is JD going to opt out? It's I don't know if JD's going to opt out, but this is what I can tell you I think could happen. And people listen to that, and it's fun.
It is a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. And I'm glad that you've kind of picked up the ball and ran with it because you did kind of get your start here. So when you come on to the Nest podcast, it's almost like you're coming home a little bit. So we like that, and we wish you nothing but continued success with the Pesky Report. Go out there, follow them, and keep up to date with the 2022 Boston Red Sox. It'll be a blast, I'm sure. Brad, thanks so much for coming by. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you, bud.
Zach, before we get off here, we have Monday Night Football coming up in a matter of minutes. We have the Giants versus the must-win Kansas City Chiefs. If the Chiefs lose this game, are they done for the year?
Pretty much. This is, like you said, this is a must-win. This is a should-win. This is a how could you not win this game? And honestly, I think there's been a few problems throughout the season, and obviously defense is one of those, but I don't think that's going to be fixed anytime soon. What's interesting to me over the past couple weeks is the fact that Patrick Mahomes has thrown some interceptions, and that's not something he's been really doing in the past. I'm not sure exactly what the issue is there. I do think there's a bit of how do I describe it? A bit of off the field drama, if you will. I don't know if you've noticed, but his wife and his brother have been in the news a little bit. His brother had some weird feud in the stands, and his wife is always going off on Twitter and whatever. And I think for a guy like him, he kind of came out of nowhere and lit the world on fire. MVP, Super Bowl, all this stuff, and everyone thought he was made of gold. And now he's kind of showing that he is a human. You know, he is beatable. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Chiefs bounce back from this kind of slump that they're in, because he is, again, kind of like Dak Prescott. He is the glue that holds that entire team together. Yes, there are weapons all over that team, but if he's throwing interceptions, that means that Tyreek Hill's not getting the ball. Travis Kelce's not getting the ball. And I think that's a big problem for them to have. This is a must-win game. If they do end up losing this game, yeah, sound the alarms. It's trouble in Kansas City.
Yeah, you mentioned Mahomes and all that. You know, I don't feel too sorry for him. He's got $500 million rolling his way over the next 10 years. So that is what it is. But I do think that he needs to keep his family life and his professional life separate, because his family is definitely tarnishing his name.
It's very strange to watch. And I mean, I guess I understand the media covering it, but it's all just kind of like ridiculous. Like, who cares what Patrick Mahomes' brother is doing at the end of the day? But whatever the media decides to pay attention to, I guess, is what everyone else decides to pay attention to. So here we are. But I do agree. I think it's weird that they have a voice simply because their family member is successful, and they're kind of riding his coattails. But I guess that's the world we live in these days.
Yep. Yeah, that is it. You know, one guy makes it from the hood. Everybody wants to cling to those coattails and get out themselves.
Yep.
It's a story as old as time itself.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anyway, we appreciate everybody for watching and tuning in tonight. We love having the engagement and all of you that tune in every Monday night and every Saturday night that talk to us and keep us up to date on what's going on in your lives and ask us, you know, your fantasy football questions and all that stuff. So thank you for doing that, and continue to do it in the future. And we'll keep doing this show every Monday and Saturday night for you. And with that being said, we will see you guys Saturday night. We've got some football to go watch. We out.